UFC 4. How to play. The core gameplay of UFC 4 is similar to its predecessor, though some mechanics have been overhauled to make the experience more accessible for new players, especially the ground game. Still, plenty of people downloading the fighting game from EA Play will be new to the series and possibly even the sport of MMA too. These UFC 4 tips are for such people. 11. Practice in the training area. UFC 4. Learn. The best way to learn the mechanics in UFC 4 is to practice them in the training room. Players can adjust their opponent's AI to perform moves, punches, and combos. For example, many opponents online will spam overhand rights, so players can program the AI to use the same attack. Now, the player can learn how to avoid, block, and counter it until the overhand is no longer an issue. Practicing moves in the gym until they become second nature is the best way to improve in UFC 4. 10. Learn how and when to counter. Conor McGregor vs. Rafael dos Anjos. As stated above, the dodge mechanic can be a double-edged sword, so using it at the right time is paramount to landing a successful counterattack, which can often lead to a flash knockout. Players will encounter opponents that throw 4-hit combos designed to break the guard. This is achieved by spamming the square and triangle buttons for quick combos. It's frustrating, but the best way to counter this is to practice slipping the straight punch ever so slightly to the side and countering with a hook. The same strategy will work for the hook spammers out there too. To set up a counterpunch, a quick pullback on the R stick will cause the opponent to miss and leave them wide open for a devastating counterattack. Slipping the straight punch, gently press up or down on the R stick at the right time. Slipping the hook, quickly pull back on the R stick at the right time and immediately follow with a punch. 9. Master the submission mechanic. Submission mechanic. As mentioned, most new players spend their first few hours in the game trying to nail picture-perfect knockouts, so submissions are largely ignored. Although they may not be as flashy as knockouts, submissions are the way approximately 25% of fights in the UFC are finished, so it's vital to learn the mechanic. Related. UFC 4. The best fighters for beginners, ranked. Thankfully, the game offers in-depth tutorials for submissions, so players can be up to speed before they have their first fight. 8. Keep your hands up. Fighters close together with their hands up. Anyone coached to fight will have heard the phrase, keep your hands up. The reason fighters keep their hands up isn't too tricky to comprehend. It defends the fighter's head while also keeping their hands at a good height to land head punches of their own. Players should adopt this simple strategy in UFC 4, ensuring their hands are up as often as possible. Of course, players also have to contend with body blows, but holding their hands up should always be the default stance. The block won't protect the player's fighter forever, as the arms get damaged, meaning that blocking will become less effective as the fight wears on. 7. Clinch when in trouble. Fighters clinching in any professional fight, whether boxing, kickboxing, or MMA, fighters will likely clinch on multiple occasions. Floyd Mayweather is well known for his clinching, as the defense-first boxer will frequently hold onto his opponents if they start getting the upper hand. When on the receiving end of some hard strikes, clinching or even shooting a takedown is a great way to stop the opponent's momentum. Remember, unlike boxing, MMA fighters can elbow, knee, and take down their opponent in a clinch, so be sure not to get complacent. 6. Set up significant strikes with jabs. Jumping head kick. UFC 4 lets players pull off some extraordinary moves to replicate some of the greatest knockouts in MMA history. Spinning back fists, Superman punches, and jumping roundhouse kicks are all implemented into the game, though players should think carefully before throwing them. Not only does throwing audacious knockout attempts drain stamina, but it also makes the player predictable and easy to pick apart. Instead, it's best to set up significant strikes with a few jabs, as it will create a better opening while also gaining some footing on the scorecard. 5. Focus on combos. Conor landing a punch to the head. Following on from the previous point, it's handy to memorize a handful of reliable combos which play to the chosen fighter's strengths and have been worked on in the game's practice mode. These combos don't need to be too in-depth to begin with, Just a few 1-2 combinations that intend to create an opening and catch the opponent by surprise. Once new players are comfortable with a few 1-2 hits, they can try more complex combinations. UFC 4 is designed to reward those who use combos, so players should implement them into their fights as soon as possible. 4. Find a style that works for you. Khabib celebrating. As the name mixed martial arts suggests, the sport features fighters with styles that range from Muay Thai to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and kickboxing. Related. UFC 4. Best punching combinations. Consequently, when selecting a fighter, players should pick someone compatible with their game plan. For example, if players are going for a quick knockout, they should go with a hard-hitting kickboxer. On the other hand, those planning to finish with a submission will need someone well-versed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. 3. Don't ignore body shots and leg kicks. Adesanya spinning kick. In fantasy gear and arena flash, knockouts usually occur when someone is struck on the head. So many new players believe that swinging for that area with every strike is a logical move. However, this can create numerous issues. For starters, constantly swinging for the head will make the player extremely easy to predict, allowing the opponent to block, dodge, and counter. Furthermore, body and leg kicks can wear the opponent down, making them overprotect and leave openings, or even forcing them to give up if they take too much punishment for a specific body part. 2. Create distance when needed. UFC 4. Poirier v. Guiu. In UFC 4, some fighters are well suited for coming forward and keeping the pressure on with strikes and infighting. The best way to deal with these opponents is to try and create as much distance as possible. Spinning back kicks and side kicks to the body is a great way to push an opponent back and drain their stamina. The UFC also has a push-away feature that is effective for getting some distance. Fighters with a long reach should also utilize the lunge-away mechanic, which is for backing away from an opponent and landing a counter. Lunging. L1, LB, and the R stick to move away or slip to the side. Push away. Press R2 and square, X, or triangle, Y, if fighting southpaw. 1. When an opponent is rocked, go all out for the finish. Jumping kick. To Khabib. As new players improve at UFC 4, they will start landing flush blows that will rock their opponent. It's easy to know when this has happened, as there will be numerous audio and visual indicators, such as the stamina and corresponding health bar flashing. When an opponent is rocked, throwing the game plan out of the window and starting to swing for the fences suddenly becomes a solid idea. Granted, there's always the chance that the opponent can land a successful counterattacking blow, though their chances are slim, and the opportunity to finish the opponent shouldn't be squandered. However, be aware a more experienced player can easily turn the tide of combat very quickly. Additionally, one should keep an eye on their stamina, because going wild and not getting a successful KO will drain the player's stamina. EA Sports UFC 4 is of a